We've all heard the phrase, the hill I would die on. And we all know that it's used rhetorically. Because if you look at the wording itself, it could have pretty big implications if you used it literally, but it's used pretty flippantly nowadays. In this rage baiting and reactionary society, we can get turned up about pretty much anything. I can post a photo of a Starbucks cup and people will flip out because I went to Starbucks. Pretty much anything you say nowadays can result in some kind of hate, backlash, trolls, whatever. But that doesn't mean that that's the hill you'll die on. I really could care less what people think about my coffee choices. My name is Reagan, yes, like the president, and I've been a personality on social media for over 3 years. It was never intentional. I started an Instagram page to keep track of my health progress and to keep my loved ones updated after I became chronically ill all of a sudden. I made a funny reel because I was having fun on Instagram. It accidentally went viral, and overnight I had tens of thousands of followers. So from then on, I just decided to keep going. People came to learn more about chronic illness, disability, and I was learning and I shared my journey along the way. It was sort of an online journal mixed in with memes and randomness. I would post what I wanted. I never had a schedule. I never had the goal of gaining more followers or anything like that. So I was just having fun. I found that people were encouraged and I found that they could relate to my content. And then I found purpose in knowing that other people didn't feel as alone as I did when I first got sick. I was able to give advice based on what I'd experienced. I was able to share my strong beliefs on accessibility, medical system reform, women's health, all sorts of things on that topic. And to be honest, for a long time, I was too sick to leave the house because I was so in the throes of chronic illness. So it provided me a hobby and an outlet for me during a very hard time in my life. I never meant to be an influencer, but I've enjoyed the ride. And I have dabbled with the idea of starting a podcast for some time. 2 or 3 times I almost did. What stopped me was that I know myself, and I know that if I'm not 150% into what I'm doing, it's going to fizzle out like right away. And while I found much meaning, and I still find much meaning in sharing chronic illness and disability awareness, there's only so much content out there. As it is, in the 3 years I've been doing this Instagram page, I've just found myself recycling the same half dozen topics over and over in different creative ways. And there's nothing wrong with that for an Instagram page, but it will never last more than like 2 episodes if you were to do a podcast. And not only would there have been very little content, but it wasn't content that I was on fire about. I was passionate, but it wasn't something that could have kept me going. I need to be passionate enough to keep showing up, using a ton of energy, and staying on fire for it for a long period of time. I never jumped into a more serious online influencing role because I never found the hill that I would die on until Wednesday. We all remember where we were during the most tragic moments of our lifetime. My earliest memory of my entire life is 9/11. I was 4 years old, I was watching Blue's Clues, and my mom screamed in the bedroom, and I ran in. I saw smoke coming out of a building on the TV, and I thought she was watching a grown up movie. I had no idea what had happened, and I didn't understand the implications of it until years later. But it's still the earliest memory of my entire life. Last year, when President Trump was almost assassinated, I was in a Petco with my husband getting treats for our cats. This Wednesday, I was ironically in the emergency room. I had suspected complications from a medical treatment and I wanted to get checked out to make sure I was okay. My husband was sitting next to me in the waiting room and I was on my phone trying to distract myself from my symptoms when I saw that Charlie Kirk had been shot. We were stunned and I spent the rest of my time there, and so did my husband, just constantly refreshing social media, news outlets, anything we could find just to see that he was okay. And that update never came. By the time I was released from the hospital, we learned that Charlie would never leave the hospital that he had been brought to. I was raised in an extremist, religious, ultra right wing household. If we weren't learning about a conspiracy theory, we were being yelled at because we were the devil. Extremism is very easy to spot when you grow up with it your entire life. I escaped my parents' home and I haven't spoken to them in almost 6 years. And in those 6 years, a lot of deconstructing has taken place, both with my faith and my political beliefs. I definitely came way back from the extremist views, and for a minute I thought I was an independent, and that did not last. The more I got to know the left and the ideologies and the political beliefs of so many Democratic leaders and speakers and personalities, the further right I went. Definitely not as far as my parents, but probably just a scooch left of Charlie Kirk. And as such, Charlie was always a staple on my For You page. He's just a figure that you don't not see. You get to know him, you get to see him on your feed, and slowly he becomes a part of your life. You never think that he's not going to be there when you open TikTok or YouTube. There's a million people online, and there's a million people who die every day, and each one is equally tragic. Death is never not going to be a tragedy because we weren't made to see it. It's not what we were designed for. This world is not what we were designed for. We don't belong here. And it's unnatural when your soul doesn't belong in the place where these things keep happening. And even more than that, with the world at our fingertips, we are exposed to death and horror and tragedy on a daily basis. Our brains don't have a choice but to try and numb and desensitize us to this constant terror. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to function. That's why we see headlines of deaths every single day and we're able to move on with our life. But then suddenly, out of the blue, a person who you got to know, who you looked up to and respected and admired and disagreed with, and you knew you could disagree with him and it was just fine, suddenly that man's gone forever. This isn't unnatural. This isn't an abnormal feeling. People were devastated when Elvis died. Robin Williams died, when Martin Luther King died, John F. Kennedy, Abraham Lincoln, Alexander Hamilton, going all the way back. Anytime a person was taken from us too soon, we were devastated. Society was devastated. At any point in history, a public figure that you became familiar with because they held a presence in your life, in your home, even if they never knew who you were, it was always going to be a tragedy that you felt personally. And I can say without comparison that Wednesday was not only one of the worst days in our country's life, but it was the most devastating public figure death of my entire lifetime. Charlie Kirk was a 31-year-old believer, father, husband, son, friend, mentor, founder of Turning Point USA, and celebrity from his viral videos where he sat in a booth and said, "Prove me wrong." I can't think of another person with such passion, drive, or authenticity. I literally cannot think of a person who more energetically faced the world, knowing the world was going to spit in his face every single time. And he welcomed it. He put a microphone out and said, "Come to it. If you disagree with me, if you hate me, talk to me." He was the embodiment of free speech, the embodiment of the notion that we can disagree and still be human beings. And his life was taken right in the middle of doing what he valued and loved most, having a conversation. Just proving that you can talk and be a decent human being while still being passionate about what you believed. And you can be unafraid to share it because the other person is fine with it. He literally said a few weeks ago that if he died, he would want to be remembered for his faith. And there's literally nothing else that I think he could ever be so remembered for. He showed grace and respect to the most radical, rude, hateful people who came up to his microphone. They would say the most vile and just outright lies, and he would just stay calm. I have no idea how he did that aside from the Lord, obviously, but still, I don't think I'd ever be able to do that. I mean, maybe, but I don't think I could ever do that. I don't think anyone would ever be able to do what he did, and I don't think anyone will ever fill the shoes of Charlie Kirk. This has been one of the most emotional weeks I remember having in a very long time. First, from seeing the gruesome, horrific footage of the death of one of my most admired public figures, a young man passionately living his life for God and country. The same video plastered over and over again on every single app that you open on your phone. You don't have a choice but to see it. You can't escape it. And then just when you think it couldn't get any worse, just when you're reeling from this tragic assassination, then comes the aftermath.
You support a shooter?
Charlie Kirk got shot and killed. How do you feel?
Happy. Goodbye.
Did you see that Charlie Kirk just got shot and killed?
That's good.
Charlie Kirk gets shot and killed today. We're just getting people's opinions. How do you feel about that?
Girl, someone had to do it.
I'm not saying she deserved it, but I'm saying God's timing is always right.
Charlie Kirk just got shot.
he was a fucking Nazi. And you know what kind of Nazi is the best Nazi? A dead one.
I'm not happy about this.
There will always be evil people in this world. Evil is the direct contradiction of good. Good is the embodiment of morality, and morality is derived directly from God. Anyone with any sort of soul knows good versus evil. They know it when they see it, whether they want to admit it or not. And I can be straight up honest with you when I say I have never seen such blatant evil on such a widespread platform as I have seen this week. And I don't think it's the majority. I don't think that at all. I think that social media promotes the most scandalous and controversial material so that they can get the most likes and views and shares and comments. And it is the perfect outlet for the loud minority to overinflate their influence and present the mirage of relevancy. But even seeing one person celebrating the brutal assassination of a genuine and authentic man right in front of his family is one too many. Just knowing these people roamed the street free, knowing that I could go to the grocery store and the person in line in front of me might wish me dead if they knew what I believed. Evil exists. I know. We see it every day. We are living in a fallen world that is filled with evil. But just seeing it so prevalently, oh my gosh, like it just continues to blow me away. The celebration, the cheering, like you can see it in their eyes. It's just literally people sold off to the devil right now because they're just so happy to see the graphic, horrific assassination of a man who never lifted a finger to hurt another person. It took a couple of days reeling from all of this before I realized why I believe it has hit me so specifically hard. And it's just dawned on me that this is the hill I want to die on. I've always given off the impression on my page that I'm not political, that I try to stay out of politics and not talk about it and not think about it and stay neutral. I did that on purpose for several reasons. Firstly, because I didn't want to muddle my page. I had a niche, I wanted to stick with it, and for a time I was making a very small income on there as well, and to be honest, with chronic illness, you take whatever you can get. Also, I don't do confrontation very well. Growing up in an abusive household will do that to you because in a home like that, confrontation equals violence, and you straight up go into fight or flight the second you're faced with even the most minor confrontation. Another reason that I just can't fathom how Charlie Kirk stayed so calm at all of his rallies. It was also very clear how polarized and reactionary my audience was. Anytime I would mention like a huge tragedy or anything that remotely even had an opinion, if it was like a big enough event that warranted a response from a niche page, I would say something like, hey, not to get too political, we're not going to politics, but let's just be human and show love and compassion. And even though I was so dedicated to staying vague and neutral every time, I would still get backlash and hate and people losing their minds. So I just stayed away from it anytime I could because I knew that if I had an opinion on anything, people were going to freak out. Also, I definitely believe that I don't owe anyone on the internet anything. I don't owe anyone anywhere anything. I've never been and I never will be obligated to share every part of myself and who I am and what I believe and what I think with total random strangers. I've only ever posted what I wanted to post, and I'm never going to change that. And lastly, I'm chronically ill, and oh my gosh, this stuff takes so much energy. So why was I going to waste my energy on people who were just going to hate me and say gross things to me? But now all of it just makes me laugh because I was able to be so vague that tens of thousands of people thought I didn't care. And to be clear, I don't feel bad for not sharing my opinions and views sooner than this. Obviously, aside from being open about my faith, I feel like everyone on my page knew I was a Christian. I just really wasn't that forward with the details of what I believed. So I don't feel bad that I didn't share things before this. I don't feel like I need to apologize for not coming out for another cause or because of another story or tragedy or something like that. Like, hey, I wasn't ready and now I am. And that's all there is to it. But I just find it funny that everyone thought I wasn't political when reality, not a day has gone by the past few years that I have not listened to multiple political podcasts. I love politics. I love the passionate pursuit for truth and freedom and representing godliness on a social and political scale. I have very passionate and distinct views on almost every topic, especially since in this modern age, politics and social and religious views go hand in hand. It's not all just about fiscal politics and international affairs and the debt and the budget. Unfortunately, politics has become wrapped right into morality, and the two aren't even distinctive anymore. And as such, I have become an extremely political person because of that. I get very fired up when I see lies and propaganda and things that are so clearly untrue and people defending things that are morally wrong. I get super feisty, and honestly, I can get to the point where it flares my symptoms if I get too fired up, so I always have to keep it in check. But overall, I love America. I love freedom. But of course, we all know that politics and social matters are the most divisive things out there. Nobody can sit still long enough to understand that people are going to have different beliefs. For 3 years, I have existed right smack dab in the center of the most liberal group of people I have ever seen, all while being a devoted conservative. And I've never said a word. I've never attacked anyone. I never came after anyone, unfollowed, threatened, or flipped a lid because I know how to let people live their lives and not freak out on them for having a different opinion. I believe everyone's free and has a right to share their beliefs and their opinions and their values. And I just decided to stay quiet for those years because I didn't want to get into it. So I listened to my podcasts, I did my research, I formed my views and opinions, and I find myself now in a place where I'm confident enough to share them. I had several times over the past couple of years that I almost came out as a conservative because it's exhausting to constantly deny such a big part of yourself in order to appease people who would honestly want to destroy your life if they could. But at the same time, it's exhausting to engage with it, which is why I even now don't respond to the comments. On the last post I made, I have like 500 comments, most of which are really hateful, and I'm not even going to bother engaging them. It's just, I let them kind of rant because they're not going to be decent, so I don't owe them a decent conversation. But for all these reasons, I held back from saying anything until the moment that I saw Charlie Kirk assassinated, and I knew I couldn't be silent anymore. I saw his mic drop for the final time, and everything in my heart and spirit said that it was my turn to pick it up. Now, let me be clear, I am not saying that I could fill Charlie Kirk's shoes. And I'm not saying that anyone could. And I'm certainly not saying that I think more than 5 people are going to see this video or any other videos that I put up. But I know I'm doing the right thing. I knew I was doing the right thing when I posted a very kind and basically decently humane post condemning the brutal assassination of a father and a husband and a gentle man who had never hurt anyone. And I absolutely knew that I had done the right thing when about 90% of those 500 plus comments that I've received so far have been the most hateful rhetoric, downright lies, buzzwords, parroted media headlines, talking heads, out of context quotes. There hasn't been one single decent person on there giving me a valid argument. It's just been chaos, and it's just proven all the more that I don't need to sit still anymore. I don't need to be silent, and I don't owe anyone anything. I sat by for years watching people malign my faith, my most deeply held beliefs, and the things that I am most passionate about. I've seen people say the most wicked things about police officers, and my husband is a police officer on duty right now. I've seen them say things against Christianity, against white people, against straight people, against traditional values, against everything I hold dear, against everything I believe, and against everything that who I am, aside from the chronic illness and disability. So I've catered to this community for so long, and apparently I'm not allowed to say anything that's not even controversial. I'm not even allowed to come out and say the most decent thing like this man shouldn't have been assassinated. I'm not even talking about the most controversial right-wing topics. I'm not talking about things like abortion or transgenderism or racism or immigration or Israel or any of that stuff. I mean, I promise I haven't begun to talk about that stuff. But I lost 2,000 followers in 24 hours, and the number is still growing every day. I could sit among you for years and respect your beliefs, but you couldn't do the same for me in one post. I am so honestly grateful for every single unfollow I've gotten. I don't need that kind of wickedness on my page. I don't need that kind of behavior in my space, and I don't regret it for a single instant. And it's just confirmation after confirmation that I am doing the right thing. And I was honestly tempted to just put that up, leave it at that, and go back to my normal content. And you guys, it's like I was on the edge and y'all just rushed up and pushed me over. Like, I'm like, if they're not going to take this, I don't care anymore. I'm going to be true to who I am and I'm going to share what I believe. And the final straw for me was Erica Kirk. Without a doubt, she is the single strongest woman I have ever seen. I have more respect and regard and love and support for that woman than I probably have for any other public figure. I'm not even kidding. I wish I could tell her that. I wish I could let her know the support she has, not only for me, but for so many millions of people around the world. I know that she knows that, and I know that it really doesn't matter right now because her entire world was just taken away from her so viciously. If for no other reason, I wish this hadn't happened just so she wouldn't have to feel this pain because I cannot fathom what she's going through right now. But if the woman whose husband was murdered right in front of her can stand up and face the cowards and the liars and the forces of evil, then I can certainly talk to a computer screen. And I certainly will. Charlie Kirk was a man of God. He was a passionate and outspoken defender of the truth. He was a man who was not always right because no man is always right, but he was a man who could just sit and have a conversation about it. I've seen him compared to Martin Luther King Jr., to Alexander Hamilton, and if for no other reason than just the sheer impact they had on this nation, I would have to agree. It was our shot heard around the world on Wednesday, and we're seeing forces rise up all around the world to mourn and to honor our Charlie. And for every person posting a vile video celebrating his death, there are hundreds and thousands of decent people picking up the torch, picking up the microphone. An army has been unleashed for the truth, for free speech, and to defend the fact that humanity can disagree and still treat each other well. That assassin made such a big mistake because whatever he wanted to accomplish, the opposite has happened. If he wanted to incite a violent uprising, he is very disappointed because there has been no violence. If he wanted to silence our movement, the complete opposite has happened. We will rise up, we will defend, and we will passionately and peacefully spread the truth and the love of the Lord, knowing all this time that the Lord can see and Charlie Kirk can see it. To Erica and Charlie's young children, nothing can ever fix what's been done, and nothing we can say will change it. But you are loved, you are prayed for, and you are supported, and you will do great things that this world can't even fathom. To Charlie, thank you for being the literal turning point of America, for never backing down, never letting fear stop you from fulfilling God's calling in your life. You gave your entire life right up until the final second in the pursuit of truth, and there is no way a life could be greater lived or a well done, good and faithful servant better earned. You can rest in peace. And you can know that the microphone won't stay on the ground and the torch will stay lit, and that hundreds and thousands of people are picking it up and carrying on your work right now. This is the first of a series that I hope goes on for a long time to share the truth and the conservative biblical perspective on basically every hot topic issue from the point of view of a disabled and chronically ill young woman in America. I'm sure you don't need another talking head going over the same points that everyone else is talking about. But if one man can make such a massive difference, maybe this woman can make a small one. I do have a very unique perspective on these topics, and I do immense amounts of research, and I never ever want to misrepresent or flippantly make statements and claims without doing so much research first. I am passionate about the truth and about sharing it in love. And I feel like it's time y'all got to know the real me. I can't promise that this will be a super consistent podcast because, again, chronic illness. But I regularly plan to provide content that shares a unique perspective. I welcome questions and talking points and opinions that are stated in a respectful and decent way. I get a kick out of the trolls, but if we're going to get anywhere, it'll be through polite and respectful discussion, just like Charlie showed us every day. So stick around. If it interests you, subscribe and share it with anyone who you think might want to listen and come along as I start this journey.
How would you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing. Most important thing is my faith in my life.
I have 30 seconds left to live. I'm dying from a gunshot wound. But what would you actually want to tell me if I have 30 seconds left to live?
Boy, you got 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, you're about to meet eternal judgment. And there's only one way that you can get bailed out of that. And it's not all the good things you did or the moral scorecard. It's whether or not you have Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And that's the only thing that's going to matter. And so you got 10 seconds left, you're dying from a gunshot wound. And you ask the question, who is Jesus Christ? And the answer to that singular question, who is Jesus Christ, is the most important question for everyone in the audience. Not how much money you have, not how much good stuff you do. It is, who is Jesus Christ? You might say, oh, Jesus was, a teller of good tales, or Jesus was a good person, or Jesus was a historical figure. None of that's going to cut it. It's whether or not you repent and you ask Christ to come in as your Lord and Savior. That's the only thing that will save you from eternal damnation.